So this question is a question that what's the difference between slope and unit rate? I'm supposed to tell you that the difference between slope and unit rate is that, I'm going to turn this off. I'm supposed to tell you the difference between slope and unit rate is that slope is for rate of change and unit rate is for direct variation, but I refuse to do that because during today's class, while we were doing the this part of the activity, when we got right here, 19 liters and 5 gallons, I had a whole bunch of people start trying to figure out how many, they did 19 divided by 5 to tell me how much for 1. So even though slope is a lot of times written as a fraction or an improper fraction, it has to be a unit rate. Okay, it's a unit rate. So here's what I think. I think there is, what's the difference? Nothing. There is no difference. It's just a different phrase. Now, again, if somebody finds a difference and tells me what it is, I will take that back. We'll put a mark on my board. But I don't think there's a difference between the two. And I think trying to make one is just going to confuse you. Like, there's no reason to. Unit rate is how much for 1. Slope winds up being how much for 1. We just have to do the change in y over change in x to get it. Okay, so there's no difference. Don't let the fact that we have a whole bunch of vocabulary confuse you. All right. Once you've got that down, let's skip down here to finding y-intercept. And we're going to talk about, now, I'm not going to call this easy y-intercept, okay, because that implies that there are other ways to find y-intercept that are hard. What I am going to call this is like obvious. Like totally obvious y-intercept. And this is just going to be for now. Okay, we are going to next unit, we're going to start finding y-intercepts that are more complicated. So like, y'all may remember this. So like, you had a table that looked like this, and we have the x here and the y there, and I have like, I don't know, like 3, 12, and 4, 15, and then like 5, 18. And they're like, okay, I have to add 3 here, and I add 1 here. So my change in y over change in x is 3 over 1, which is 3. Okay, so 3 times something plus something equals y, right? Remember this? Is this kind of coming back to y'all a little bit? Okay, so then 3 times 3 plus something is 12. 9 plus something is 12. Oh, that's 3. You see what I'm saying? This process, that's not now. That's next unit. Next unit, we'll start looking at this. And honestly, even this isn't that hard. There's like, I'm going to teach you, like, we're going to learn 3 different methods. You can pick whichever one you like. Okay? One of them I'm going to push you towards. We're going to be learning something called point-slope form next unit, and I'm going to push you towards using point-slope form, not because it's the only way to do it, but because point-slope form is something you have to understand, and I want to make sure that you know how to use it. So I'll encourage you to use that method just so that you can practice using it. But there's 2 or 3 different ways you can do it. All of them are perfectly valid. Okay? But that's not what we're talking about now. Now we're talking about the easy stuff. Okay? So we're talking about like the really obvious like ways to find our y-intercept. Okay? So first of all, let's talk about tables. Okay, so in tables, we're going to look for the 0 row. Now, that is not an official math term. That's just what I call it. I call it the 0 row, and I'm sure that's not appropriate. I call it the 0 term also, but here's what I'm talking about. Okay, it's the row in the table that starts with 0. Okay, so let's say I have -1, 3, 0, 5, 1, 7, 2, 9. So let's say this is the table I have. The 0 row is the one that starts with 0. Okay, that is my y-intercept. Okay, which is also represented by the letter B. Okay, so that's my y-intercept. So in a table, I'm looking for the 0 row. Now, we're not always going to find it. But if you see it, yay, there it is. It jumps right out at you. And for this unit, that's all we're worried about. Okay? Number 2. Okay, questions about that so far? We okay so far? It really is. And all of these are obvious. They're all going to be really obvious, okay? The second one is a graph. Okay, so in a graph, we look where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? So we look where the line crosses the y-axis. So freak out this time. Okay, there we go. So if I were to sketch myself a little graph, and here's my line right there. That's my y-intercept. Okay, right there. The only other time I've heard the word intercept is an interception in football. Interception in football is where you throw the ball and somebody from the other team catches it. Okay, well, that's kind of what this is. Like the line's just running along, minding its own business, and boom, the y-axis reaches up and catches it, or reaches down and catches it. Okay, so this is where the line crosses. So the y-intercept is where the y intersects, the line intersects with the y-axis. Okay, yes.
So y-intercepts, they're not proportional?
No, if it's got a y-intercept other than 0, it's not proportional. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, settle down. Okay, all right, number 3, we have an equation. Okay, and an equation, it's the constant term. That's an N. In the equation. The constant term in the equation. When I talk about a term, and we're going to kind of review this over the next couple of days, but when I talk about a term, I mean one little chunk in an equation. So if I have 3x plus 5, 3x is a term, plus 5 is a term. 5 minus 2x, 5 is a term, minus 2x is a term. Each little chunk in an equation is a term. Okay? So, in our slope-intercept form, the plus b is the constant term. The constant term is the number by itself. Okay, and we had that in our vocabulary another time. Now, I want to make this note, okay, really quick. I wrote this somewhere, but I cannot find it. Okay, if you don't have a constant, then the y-intercept is 0. Yes. If you don't have a constant, the y-intercept is 0. Okay? We don't say that it doesn't have a y-intercept. Not every line. There's one type of line that does not have a y-intercept. Does anybody know what it is? That one has a y-intercept. There's only one, yes, the vertical line. So the vertical line doesn't have a y-intercept because it's parallel to the y-axis. Now, I need to find out more. I'm not sure if the y-axis has a y-intercept. It's basically nothing but y-intercepts. Okay? Last one I want to talk about. Number 4, situations. Okay? A situation is a one-time fee. Okay? So it's one time only. So let's write down some examples. We have shipping. Yeah, hold on. Shipping. We have initiation fee, whatever that is. Sounds kind of scary, but whatever. We have a starting value.
Is it tip one?
Huh?
Is it tip one?
Kind of. It can be. For a starting value, like let's say I get a gift card and it's got $50 on it, a Starbucks card, and I spend $5 on coffee every time I buy a coffee, $5 every time. Well, then the starting value, 50, would be my y-intercept, because I start at 50 and it goes down from there, okay? We've also got, parts. Like the tint kit would be a part, okay? We have pickup fees. We have initial fees. And this one is really annoying. It's a service charge. So like, if I have a plumbing problem and the plumber comes out, he charges me like $100 just to show up. He doesn't do anything. $100 just to look at it. Okay? And if we find more, we'll add to this list, but these are the kind of things we're looking for, and these are once only. All right? So this is the kind of stuff you're going to see for y-intercepts, obvious stuff, and that's all we're looking at in this unit.